Then they aired this awesome video package on the history of MJF and Page, going back to the very first All In from 2018, the Jacksonville kickoff presser, all their different title wins, AEW highlights. Honestly, I thought the show could have ended with this video package. I thought it was excellent. Like, it was such a good video package, and nothing that followed it, to me, equaled this video package. I thought this did everything you needed for this match, but they had hyped it all show long. Bryan Danielson hosting the press conference, and them noting that Danielson has done hour-long matches with both Page and MJF. So Danielson hosts this, and there's definitely actual media part of this. Now, one of the big negatives was they were obviously showing this to the crowd in the arena, and they left the audio on for the crowd. And I don't know why, unless they really thought that these answers were going to get reactions, which this was not a crowd responding type of segment. And instead you got boring chants, and it just, like, the crowd noise didn't help this at all. It took it even further down. And so they're taking questions.
I mean, it was a bad idea to begin with.
This was just, it was not a good idea.
Especially for the main event of a show.
No, like, this was not compelling. It didn't further the story.
They could have done this on the stage. They could have done it in front of a live audience. I mean, I guess you wouldn't have had press, be able to be seated the way they are. But
it was an idea that they had, and probably one that we don't see again, at least not in this type of presentation. Page just said he's going to leave in an ambulance. They're getting the boring chants. MJF
and these, like. So, how do you think this worked? I mean, at least
not
some
good.
of these.
Not good.
What I mean is, like, I imagine everything was okayed. All these questions might have even some of them been fed to the reporters to actually just read. And if that was the case, you would expect the responses from Page and MJF to be a lot more interesting and substantial. I thought they were. There's nothing special about any of these answers. Like, this was what you would call a boring press conference, and not certainly one that, benefited from any sort of gloss of a professional wrestling fiction.
No, this was not a good idea for a live audience, and really for TV, I didn't think it worked all that well either. The last question was the one that I laughed out loud. It said, "Hangman, if you don't win the title at Revolution, who are you?" Kudos to the guy who got this out with, like, a straight face. I love, who are you? Anyway, MJF brings in some beers, and then they brawled, and they fought through security into the arena, into the ring, and we saw Page hit a dead eye, pulls out the barbed wire board, and goes for another dead eye off the apron, but MJF escapes and runs away to end the show. I'm glad they at least did the physicality and got back into the arena, because, man, you couldn't have ended the show on this press conference. Honestly, it should have just ended after the video. I think they had an idea. It did not work. This reminded me of that weigh-in that they did with Cody and Anthony Ogogo.
And I don't believe that ended the show. So
no, I think that was right in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was a rare fumble, from these days from AEW on a show that I think completely kicked ass in terms of pro wrestling. Like, the in-ring content of this was outstanding. So, but most people are probably going to be remembering what ends the show, and they descended on a bit of a wet fart. I think it needed crowd involvement of some sort, especially if you're going to make the audio sound of the crowd heard.
How this would have been a lot better was like a closed set, and it's Danielson interviewing these two, and he's got the history with them, and you could have done all of this. Like, again, it was an idea that they had. You try different things, you learn from them. But I think that alone, like when they mentioned the thing with Danielson and their history, it was like Danielson would do a great job in this, in like a sit down, closed set type of segment that could still end with physicality, and they brawl their way. Like, you could have even done it in the ring. You could have done it in front of the crowd as well. That's kind of a different vibe than when you have the arena reacting. Anyway.
Yeah. Or I would have just I would have had it in the ring or on the stage so that audiences can react to it. And I would have, if you're going to script the questions, script the answers to be a little bit more interesting and compelling. Let the questions from the press be launching points for, like, killer lines in the form of pro wrestling promos that you would get from Page and MJF that would at least be memorable. The answers they gave felt just incredibly generic and not at all memorable. Video package though was fantastic.
Amazing. Whoever did that was seriously one of the better video packages I've seen in a long. Like I really enjoyed that Stephanie Vaquer one on Monday, but this blew that one away. I thought this was excellent, and incorporating all of the history of these two, that was a really, really great job.
It's a type of package that puts it into perspective, like at this point, how deep of a history AEW has in itself now. You know,
It's
like they could
almost
tell,
7 years.
Yeah, they can tell these like long career spanning stories using only their footage and only their stories, and not having to, you know, necessarily rely on like what's taken place before, like they have in the past with like referencing Kenny and Okada from New Japan, or like a previous WWE rivalry, for instance.
The Post Wrestling Cafe is your one-stop shop for all of the coverage that Post Wrestling has to offer. 2 big rewind-aways this month with WWF Insurrection from May of 2002. This UK-only pay-per-view featured the Raw brand going overseas and ending with the infamous plane ride from hell. Then we're going to take a look at AWA's Super Sunday from April of 1983. A new edition of Talk Can Be Yours, plus MCU Later, Book Club, and coverage of UFC 326, TNA Sacrifice, and of course, XL editions of Rewind to Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown with all the news of the day. Join now at postwrestlingcafe.com.